Welcome to this week's weekly review. 3 trades actually taken this week. 2 are still floating. One closed, partial profit. So 1% up for the week. But the 2 that are still floating are USD JPY long, as well as pound JPY long as well. Fortunately, with Alpha Capital, I am able to hold over the weekend. So keen to see how those play out potentially early on in this coming week. The trade that I did take that was a winner was also USD JPY long. And as always, for detailed breakdowns and sort of trade recaps on those trades, check me out on TradingView. The link to that is in the description below. So jumping into the advanced self-review, looking at some things that I did well this week. Oh no, this is actually a different one. I forecasted multiple possible entry points and opted for a conservative but riskier entry, which ended up being where price distributed from. And if you saw that USD JPY trade, which is the one that's currently floating in profit, that's the trade that sort of led to this entry here, where there were 2 entry points. One was a bit of a deeper correction, but it had more of high time frame confluences. So it was within a 1-hour order block. It was a 1-hour time-based liquidity sweep, and it was the perfect entry, quote unquote. But there was another potential entry which also swept liquidity and came into a 15-minute breaker block. And so relative to the plan, still met it. Slightly riskier because obviously there was that potential for further pullback, but that's the trade that ended up playing out. So in hindsight, glad that I opted for that more conservative entry. There were other factors that contributed to, I think, the argument towards that. But yeah, in a nutshell, that was something I did well this week. I was also able to spot the long opportunity, same entry, same trade, shortly after being stopped out, because the original USD JPY entry, which was stopped out in partial profit, came stop me out at break even. And then shortly after that, in the following session, I executed second long, which is currently open. And yeah, while I was fearful of that outcome at execution, I followed the plan and placed the trade. Sort of what mistakes did I make or what did I not do too well this week? Yeah, I kind of completed my top forecast a bit late. It was on Monday morning during London kill zone. And I got lucky this time. There was no entries during, that kill zone, but on a different day, I could have missed the trade. And then as well for my initial USD JPY long position, the position that closed out at break even, I was too optimistic with my take profit level because price literally fell just a few pips short of that TP before coming to hit me out at break even. So that could have been, full profit closed. And so in hindsight, I should have set my take profit at the 4-hour equal highs on that original position. And so what did I learn from the things I did well and the mistakes that I made? It's that I just need to identify which elements of my plan need to increase discretion. This was due to a mistrade on EURUSD that wouldn't have been at full profit yet. I probably would have still been holding that, but would have been in profit nonetheless. And so the discretion that I used on that particular trade led to a misposition. There's discretion that I used as well in this week that perhaps didn't lead to a misposition, but for example, like the discretion with the trade that the second UJ trade, there were multiple scenarios. Obviously, I still was just following the plan and took it, but I'm just starting to notice over time that as I get more familiar with my plan and the variation of setups, that it's introducing or allowing me to use more discretion as to which trades, I'm anticipating to be higher grade or low grade. And that's something I just need to monitor over time. Because my discretion is holding me back from taking all the setups that my plan is presenting me with. And I just need to figure out how that's distorting my data. And then just also noting that once price has begun distributing higher after the deepest point of correction, conservative entries are good entry points. And then what can I do better next time? Opt for the conservative entry when trading counter to the daily bias. That just goes back to the trade that just missed take profit. It was a bit of an optimistic take profit area. And if I had just reined in that take profit a little bit, as it was a counter trend, relative to the daily position, that would have yielded a better return. And then, if I miss a trade due to being in a meeting, but price is still at my entry area when I get back to the desk, then I should execute on the entry. And this was actually the entry that I missed on EURUSD, where I said I used a bit more discretion. So I actually missed the original position because I was in a meeting. But when I came back to the desk, price was still kind of floating in my entry area, but I wasn't too confident with how it was developing, and it looked like it may potentially break higher and, if I place the trade, stop me out. But at the end of the day, all my parameters were met, and I could have technically just executed because price was still in my entry after meeting my parameters as well as then giving me entry confirmation. So that little bit of messiness kind of post execution led me to not, or make a decision rather, not to take the trade. And that's probably the main sort of point that's led to the most important thing I can work on improving, this week is, just to moderate my discretion when I'm not confident in a setup. Just kind of rein that discretion in, because I also don't want to limit myself from taking at least the majority of trades that meet the plan, because I want to see in the long run how the data is when I'm, as objective as possible and not projecting too much discretion onto the market. So if there's a key takeaway there, it's trade the market messy. Like, don't be scared to trade the market if it meets your plan, but you feeling that it's not looking as clean as I'd like it to be, because what does that even mean at the end of the day? It's all about developing this plan that you want to trade as mechanically as possible. There will always be a degree of discretion, but you want to be as mechanical in that execution. And that's a key takeaway for me, and something that I really want to practice in this week, is just taking the trade, whether it looks clean, whether it looks messy. And then, when I'm reviewing my data set, then I can identify that, okay, this trade, and I'll make those notes from, my notebook, that I wasn't confident in this trade. I can review that. How did it play out? Okay. And if I can see there's a pattern of trades where I'm not confident in the execution and they don't play out, then, I can start to tweak the plan to account for that. But, at this stage, I should just be taking all the setup that my plan presents me with, because I don't fully yet know how, all the variations of trades are kind of going to play out. And then what's the most important thing I should continue doing this week is just continuing to identify all the potential entries and, being open to execute on those conservative entries, on those entries that aren't perfect. Because sometimes when we wait for too much confirmation, when we wait for too much perfection, that leads to mistrades. And I think that just it correlates quite nicely with this thing of discretion that I'm trying to moderate. And so that's the one most important thing I want to continue doing this week, is taking those setups that are a bit more conservative. That aren't like the picture perfect setups. And now when we come to just the Alpha Capital account metrics, just for transparency, I'm currently up about 5.6% on the accounts, just in terms of the actual balance. But with those two positions floating, one long on USD JPY, one long on pound JPY, the current floating equity is at about 7.5%. So I've got about 2% floating in profit, 2% profit floating. So yeah, I think another profitable week. A lot of takeaways from the plan. Nothing much else here. I think 13 trades, given the 2 that are open, and just looking forward to breaking those down later this week. Remember, guys, consistency is the choice you make when you start doing the things you know you should be doing day in and day out.